What if Yuji Itadori was born with sky manipulation? Imagine JJK's ultimate high-volume brawler suddenly gaining the ability to distort reality itself with his bare hands. Instead of just throwing raw, heavy-hitting punches, Yuji would become a spatial distortion powerhouse, warping the battlefield and leaving his opponents swinging at thin air. It completely rewrites his entire combat style, turning a straightforward physical tank into an elusive, untouchable menace. But before we get into the wild butterfly effects of this what-if timeline, let's first break down how this absolute cheat code of a technique actually works. Sky manipulation is easily one of the most unique and broken abilities in Jujutsu Kaisen. Rather than controlling weather elements, wind or temperature, it allows the user to treat the literal atmosphere and immediate space around them as a tangible physical surface. Think of it like being able to reach out, grab the empty air, and pull, stretch, or fold it as if it were a massive, invisible sheet of cloth. When the user warps space like this, it creates a shimmering, ripple-like effect in the air, giving a brief, terrifying visual cue that reality is bending. Defensively, it provides an almost absolute protection. Instead of blocking a cursed energy blast or a lethal blade with their body, the user can just grab the spatial fabric in front of them and pull it up like a shield. Any incoming attack simply slides right off the folded air, following the curvature of the distorted space and completely missing its target. On top of that, it grants seamless, omnidirectional flight, allowing the user to essentially wear the sky and glide through the air without ever needing solid ground to kick off from. And the absolute peak of this technique? An offensive move called Thin Icebreaker. Instead of striking an opponent directly, the user punches the literal space right in front of them, hitting the air like a solid pane of glass. This causes the spatial fabric to shatter, sending a devastating, armor-bypassing shockwave straight into the target. Because it shatters the very space the opponent is standing in, it completely ignores their physical guard. Now, just imagine putting that insane power into the hands of a natural-born physical beast like Yuji. Fearsome womb arc and the detention center part the events won't change. They'll still be the same. Yuji's body is then taken to the college's morgue so that it can be examined. Inside Sukuna's domain, things go exactly as they did in the anime. Yuji fights Sukuna, gets absolutely wrecked, and they make that in-chain deal because Yuji loses the deathmatch. Before Shoko can even start chopping him up for the autopsy, Yuji jumps right back to life, shocking Gojo. Gojo decides to keep Yuji legally dead on paper, so he can secretly train him for the Kyoto Goodwill event. When they get to the training room, Gojo starts doing his usual lecture about cursed energy, but this time, the script flips completely. Instead of telling Yuji he has no cursed technique, Gojo checks him out and realizes something insane. Yuji actually did inherit a legendary innate technique, sky manipulation. Gojo is hyped, but instead of doing the boring movie-watching training with the punching doll, he fast-tracks Yuji straight to the field to test this spatial distortion cheat code in a real fight. That test comes way sooner than expected when Jogo ambushes Gojo on the highway. Instead of keeping Yuji on the sidelines, Gojo throws him right into the fire to see what his new technique can do. Jogo laughs, thinking Yuji is an easy snack, and launches a massive wave of fire and lava. In the original story, Gojo would block it, but here, Yuji steps up. He reaches out, grabs the literal atmosphere like a blanket, and pulls it up. Jogo's entire fire blast hits the folded space and slides completely off to the side, melting the highway instead of Yuji. Jogo's jaw drops. This brat is bending reality. Before Jogo can even process what just happened, Yuji uses the solid air to launch himself forward like a rocket, changing directions mid-air at impossible angles. He gets right in Jogo's face, cracks the air like a pane of glass, and unleashes a massive, thin icebreaker. The spatial shockwave shatters right through Jogo's physical guard, blasting the volcano head backward and cracking his stone-hard skin. Furious and feeling humiliated by a teenager, Jogo snaps and drags them both into his domain expansion, the Coffin of the Iron Mountain. The landscape turns into a burning volcanic wasteland where everything should instantly burn to ashes. Gojo steps in to finish the job, expanding his own domain to overwhelm Jogo and easily ripping his head off. Before they can interrogate him, Hanami triggers the distracting flower field technique and escapes with Jogo's head. As the smoke clears, Gojo tells Yuji he'll keep training this broken ability until the Kyoto Goodwill Event, leaving a totally confused Yuji asking what the Goodwill Event even is. A month later, Yuji is introduced to another sorcerer, Kento Nanami, who will accompany Yuji on a mission. After a quick chat, they head to a theater to track down some creepy, cursed energy remnants. When they follow the tracks to the rooftops and fight two mutated humans, Yuji doesn't even need a standard fistfight. He instantly folds the air to deflect an attack, and Nanami has to stop him from completely crushing the creature with the sky. Shoko confirms the tragic news that these monsters used to be human, which hits Yuji hard. Afterward, Yuji tracks down a high schooler named Junpei to see if he's involved. They completely hit it off over movies, and Yuji even ends up having a great dinner at Junpei's house, though things get heavy when they talk about the reality of killing people. The next day, Mahito brutally murders Junpei's mom and manipulates Junpei into attacking his own school. Yuji rushes in to stop him, and the fight is a total mismatch. Junpei's giant jellyfish Shikigami tries to sting him, but Yuji completely ignores the poison, easily overpowering him. Just as Yuji convinces Junpei to come to Jujutsu High so they can catch the real killer, Mahito pops out of the shadows. He restrains Yuji and uses idol transfiguration to turn Junpei into a hideous monster right in front of him. Yuji desperately begs Sukuna to heal him, but Sukuna and Mahito just point and laugh at his misery. Watching Junpei collapse and die sparks a pure, venomous rage inside Yuji. He snaps, lunging at Mahito with raw hatred. Because Yuji houses Sukuna's soul, he naturally understands the outline of the soul, meaning his spatial attacks can actually hurt Mahito's true form. Yuji swings his fist, cracking the air like a sheet of glass, and blasts Mahito right in the face with a brutal, thin icebreaker. The armor-bypassing spatial shockwave deals absolutely tremendous damage, shattering Mahito's jaw, rattling his soul, and sending him flying across the room. Mahito is completely shocked that a brat can damage his soul like this, but he manages to corner Yuji and accidentally touches Sukuna's soul, getting a terrifying warning to back off. Just as Mahito tries to sneak attack from behind, Nanami drops in to block the blow. They team up, forcing Mahito to unleash his mutated humans as a distraction before trapping Nanami inside his domain expansion, self-embodiment of perfection. Yuji doesn't hesitate. He smashes his way into the domain from the outside. The sudden intrusion forces Mahito to touch Sukuna's soul a second time, and Sukuna straight up slices Mahito open for his arrogance. Seeing Mahito heavily wounded, bleeding out, and struggling to maintain his form, Yuji charges in to finish the job with another reality-shattering, thin icebreaker. The devastating force of the shockwave completely disrupts Mahito's cursed energy and crushes his distorted body. This deals such massive soul damage that Mahito completely panics, realizing he's about to die, and runs away by inflating himself like a giant decoy balloon to escape down a sewer drain. On the day of the Kyoto Goodwill event, Yuji meets up with Gojo and Nanami. Gojo convinces Yuji to jump out of a giant box to surprise his friends, which completely flops since Nobara just gets pissed at him for faking his death. After checking in with Megumi, the event kicks off, and the Tokyo squad runs straight into Aoi Todo. Yuji stays behind to 1v1 him while the others split up. Todo initially dominates the fistfight, but when he asks Yuji what his type of girl is, Yuji's answer triggers a massive, delusional bromance fantasy in Todo's head. Instead of correcting a lagging punch like the original timeline, Todo critiques how Yuji uses sky manipulation, teaching him how to seamlessly flow cursed energy through his spatial bends instead of relying on raw muscle. Yuji thanks Todo, and they agree to go all out against each other, but the fight is cut short when a massive veil drops and a special-grade curse, Hanami, crashes the party. Initially, Yuji fights alone, trying to land a black flash, but he messes up because he's too angry. Todo slaps him, tells him to clear his head, and explains how to channel that focus. Yuji locks in, combines his spatial manipulation with the ultimate spark of cursed energy, and lands a massive black flash. From there, Todo joins the fray, using Boogie Woogie to constantly swap Yuji, Hanami, and a powerful cursed tool around the battlefield. Hanami absolutely dies in this timeline because the combination of Yuji's new abilities is just way too much to handle. Instead of just taking heavy punches, Hanami is hit with consecutive, reality-shattering thin icebreakers that completely bypass his durable wooden armor. On top of that, Yuji stacks these armor-piercing spatial shockwaves with a whopping 4 consecutive black flashes. The sheer concussive force of the sparks, combined with the literal shattering of space, completely obliterates Hanami's core, ripping the curse apart and erasing him from existence before Gojo even has a chance to break the veil with hollow purple. After the brutal invasion is dealt with, Yuji catches up with Nobara and Megumi to talk about how they all need to get stronger. Todo shows up to bug him, causing Yuji to instantly run away from his self-proclaimed brother. Later, the faculty and students decide to finish the event with a chill game of baseball. Yuji plays catcher, striking out Noritoshi Kamo after a quick chat about why they became sorcerers. When Todo steps up to bat, Maki straight up drills him in the face with the ball, and Yuji has to hold Todo back from throwing a tantrum. In the end, Tokyo takes the win, and Yuji officially proves he is an absolute force to be reckoned with. Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara are assigned a mission to investigate the mysterious deaths involving the victims. Supervised by Akari Nita, they head to Megumi's old junior high and find out all the victims were found knocked out under Yasoachi Bridge. Meanwhile, Mahito and Geto incarnate the cursed womb, death paintings, Kechizu and Eso, into human vessels to steal Sukuna's fingers. When Megumi realizes his sister Tsumiki is also under the bridge's curse, the first years immediately head out to crack the barrier. They find a rapid mole-like curse, but Kechizu suddenly ambushes them. Eso pops up too, dragging Nobara out of the domain, while Megumi stays inside, taps into his true potential, and unlocks his own domain expansion for the first time to effortlessly solo the Finger Bearer. Outside the barrier, the fight against the Death Painting Brothers is a total joke compared to the original timeline, because Yuji is a flying spatial menace. Eso activates his rot technique, Decay, infecting Yuji and Nobara with poisonous blood, prompting Nobara to slam her own chest with resonance to hurt them back. But once the fight heats up, Yuji doesn't even need to stay grounded. He literally wraps the sky around himself, takes off into the air, and scoops Nobara up, carrying her as he glides effortlessly above the toxic blood attacks. From high in the air, Yuji folds space to deflect every single drop of poison blood right back at the brothers, completely neutralizing their technique. Yuji wins this fight insanely easily. Instead of a desperate struggle, he flies down with overwhelming speed, using the solid air as footholds to launch a devastating black flash combined with a thin icebreaker. The shockwave shatters Kechizu's defenses and explodes his core instantly. Nobara finishes the job on his remains with a quick hairpin attack. When a crying Eso tries to hijack a speeding truck to escape, Yuji doesn't bother running behind it, he just takes to the skies. Yuji flies right over the truck like a rocket, cuts off the vehicle from above, and drops down with a final, reality-cracking spatial punch that obliterates Eso on the spot. Afterward, Choso finds out his brothers are dead and fumes with rage alongside Mahito and Geto. Yuji and Nobara take a quiet second to process killing flesh-and-blood opponents who actually cared for each other, agreeing that they are partners in crime. Back in Tokyo, Gojo is hyped about their success. He pays off Meimei, and alongside Todo, they officially recommend the first years and Maki's crew for Grade 1 promotions. As the three reach the Shibuya Tower, they use Megumi's Nue Shikigami to reach on top of the tower. After Takuma fails to break the barrier objects, Yuji and Megumi trick the curse user Awasaka, wire him up, and throw him to the ground floor. Awasaka's inverse technique initially shrugs off their heaviest hits, but Yuji uses his spatial awareness to masterfully adjust the exact force of his punch at the last second, completely bypassing the defense and knocking him out cold. Megumi carries Takuma to Shoko's medical tent, while Yuji sprints toward the subway station where Gojo is trapped. Without Hanami in the mix, Gojo was almost certainly getting boxed up in Shibuya. While Hanami's domain amplification helped stall for a hot second and drained a tiny bit of Satoru's energy, it wasn't the make or break part of Kenjaku's master plan. Remember, Kenjaku is basically a walking cheat code with cursed spirit manipulation. If Hanami wasn't there, he could have just dumped a dozen other special-grade spirits into the station to act as meat shields. He could have easily swapped Hanami for someone like Kurorushi, that nasty cockroach spirit Yuta had to deal with in Sendai, to keep the pressure on. At the end of the day, the goal wasn't to kill Gojo, it was just to overwhelm his brain for a single minute. With the sheer number of spirits Kenjaku has in his back pocket, Gojo still ends up getting sealed exactly the same way. Deep underground, Yuji runs face first into Choso. The fight between Yuji and Choso is an absolute gauntlet. Choso pushes his blood manipulation to the limit, slicing through the air with piercing blood and dropping a surprise supernova that severely wounds Yuji and impales his foot. Yuji fights through the agonizing pain, using the solid air footholds of sky manipulation to outmaneuver the lethal blood constructs. Following a radio tip from Mekamaru, Yuji baits Choso into a flooded bathroom, completely neutralizing Choso's ability to control his external blood. Forced into a brutal hand-to-hand brawl, Choso still manages to land a heavy blow using blood kept inside his own body. Yuji knows he cannot lose here if they want to save Gojo. Channeling every ounce of his remaining cursed energy into his absolute strongest attack yet, Yuji cracks reality itself like glass, unleashing a catastrophic thin icebreaker that shatters Choso's internal defenses and knocks him out cold. Yuji wins the fight, but the victory costs him everything. Bleeding out heavily from his severe injuries and blood loss, Yuji collapses into unconsciousness on the cold concrete floor. This near-death state triggers a bizarre phenomenon. The unconscious Choso, physically reacting to the severe trauma of his opponent, suddenly senses a profound, soul-deep connection to Yuji. Brain-melting fake memories of a peaceful life together flood Choso's mind, forcing him to wake up in a daze and stumble away to find his newly realized little brother. While Yuji lies helpless, Mimiko and Nanako find him first and begin feeding him a finger. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the station, Nanami, Maki, and Naobito enter and engage Dagon. They overwhelm the curse, forcing Dagon to expand his domain. Megumi breaks into the domain from the outside to try and create an escape route, but before they can run, Toji Fushiguro crashes through the hole. Toji takes Playful Cloud, ruthlessly slices Dagon apart, and drags Megumi away to another location for a brief fight, ending his own reincarnation ritual after learning Megumi's name. Immediately after Dagon dies, Jogo arrives on the scene to mourn him. Finding Nanami, Maki, and Naobito heavily weakened, Jogo easily blitzes and burns them all. Right after burning them, Jogo senses Sukuna's presence. He rushes over, blows Mimiko and Nanako away from the unconscious Yuji, and forces 10 more of Sukuna's fingers down Yuji's throat, triggering an immediate awakening. When Sukuna takes control, the King of Curses decides to have some twisted fun testing out Yuji's innate sky manipulation technique alongside his own slashes. He easily slaughters the two girls, handles Jogo's demands, and enters a spectacular firepower battle against the volcano curse, using bent space to lazily redirect Jogo's blazing flames right back at him before turning Jogo to ash. Right as that fight ends, Megumi is ambushed by Haruta Shigemo, and pushed to the brink of death, summons the unstoppable Divine General Mahoraga in a suicidal exorcism ritual. Sukuna senses the massive surge of power, leaves Uraume behind, and engages Mahoraga. Sukuna uses Yuji's spatial folding to deflect the general's positive energy sword and expands his malevolent shrine domain to decimate the entire area, saving Megumi before handing control back to Yuji. Yuji wakes up to the horror of the destruction Sukuna left behind, weeping in despair before forcing himself to run deeper into the station. There, he witnesses Mahito brutally execute a half-burnt, surviving Nanami right in front of his eyes. Overcome with pure rage, Yuji lunges into battle. Mahito tries to break Yuji's mind by swapping places with a clone and using transfigured humans as shields. The clone runs to the surface and encounters Nobara, leading her right into the underground path to lure them both into a trap. Just as the main Mahito shifts positions and stretches out his hand to touch Nobara with idle transfiguration, Yuji utilizes his flight. He flies faster than a rocket past Mahito, scoops Nobara up in midair, and flies her away to a safe distance far from the blast zone before returning to the fray. Yuji lands back in the tunnel just as Todo arrives on the scene. With Todo's boogie-woogie and Yuji's sky manipulation working in perfect harmony, the fight becomes incredibly easy. Every time Mahito tries to shift his soul or dodge, Todo claps his hands, swapping Mahito directly into the path of Yuji's reality-shattering thin icebreakers and devastating black flashes. They completely dismantle Mahito, beating him into absolute submission before Todo can even lose his hand to an explosion. Before they can land the final blow, Kenjaku steps out of the shadows and instantly absorbs a helpless Mahito using cursed spirit manipulation. Todo immediately reacts, using Boogie Woogie to swap the prison realm out of Kenjaku's hands, but Kenjaku's raw speed is terrifying. He speed blitzes Todo, cleanly cuts off his hand to kill the technique, and delivers a brutal kick that knocks Todo completely unconscious. Yuji is left isolated and facing down the mastermind alone. The newly awakened protective Choso steps up to the plate, ready to lay down his life to defend his little brother. From here, the events won't change. Choso ends up getting his butt completely kicked by Kenjaku in a brutal showdown, and Kenjaku successfully initiates the chaotic Culling Games just like he planned. Now to the Culling Games.